There have been a multitude of questions as to how the Baltimore riots started. Well, to answer that question, it actually started. It actually all started when Freddie Gray died while he was in police custody. According to BBC, CNN, and multiple sources alike, Freddie Gray died when when about 80% of his spine was severed at his neck. And and according to multiple other sources, he did not receive timely medical attention during his incarceration. And back to what BBC was saying, they also speculated whether he was subjected to a nickel ride, which was a police tactic that could possibly keep a suspect unsecured during an intentionally rough journey. Now, to start with the riots, they they actually started as peaceful protests over Gray's death, and 1,000 protesters, I'd say over 1,000, mind you, over 1,000 protesters were protesting for the justice of Freddie Gray. However, these peaceful protests did not last for very long, as violence quickly lashed out throughout Baltimore entirely. To start with the violence, riot- rioters began destroying police windows by smashing them and vandalizing shop fronts. Also, shootings, lootings, arson, and a multitude of acts of violence added insult to injury during the riots. In response to these riots, the National Guard dispatched 5,000 troops, I say again, 5,000 troops, to regain control of Baltimore and regain order there. Also, Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake ordered a state of emergency and a mandatory curfew, which lasted from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning until it was lifted on May 3rd, the riots end. However, during the Baltimore riots, there has been widespread criticism over these acts of violence. And there were figures who criticized these riots. One of these figures was President Obama, who condemned the rioters as criminals for senseless destruction and violence. He even said that his thoughts are with the officers who were seriously injured during the riots. Ray Lewis was another figure who took to the social media saying that violence has never been the answer at all. He even pleaded with protesters in his video, telling them to get off the streets and go home. Too many hardworking adults built this city from the ground up. As a result, 6 officers were suspended and charged with involuntary manslaughter, gross negligence, second degree assault, as to whether it was either negligent or intentional, misconduct in office, and false imprisonment. To identify the 6 officers, according to BBC, CNN, and all other sources, the officers were Caesar Goodson, Bill Porter, Brian Rice, Edward Nero, Alicia White, and Garrett Miller. In this case, the Baltimore, to put it this way, the Baltimore riots were completely unnecessary and they were senseless acts of violence because it accomplished almost nothing at all except the charging and suspension of the 6 officers who were involved in Freddie Gray's